Welcome to Derby Talk, the show that tracks the Emmy race. And this year, the race is brought to you by the Breeders' Cup World Championship is our sponsor. And they want you to know that the best things in life are worth betting on, which we know pretty well here at Gold Derby. This year, the Breeders' Cup is on November 1st and November 2nd at Santa Anita Park here in Los Angeles and telecast on NBC. Now, we are here with Holly Hunter and with our senior editor, Daniel Montgomery, to talk about Top of the Lake, which is one of the top contenders for Best Movie Miniseries. It aired on the Sundance Channel in March. And that was kind of appropriate, wasn't it, Holly? Because the first airing of this was at the Sundance Film Festival, right? It's 7 hours long. I understand that it took almost a whole day to show it to the group.
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting to be at the festival when I think that was an unprecedented event at Sundance, and the audience found it to be kind of an event. I think people were excited to make the commitment to engage in the story all day long.
And this is kind of a genre-defying show in a way. What the critics seem to like about it, and they love this, it gets an 90 score at Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, is that while it pays respect to the kind of investigative drama, there is real unusual development of characters and dramatic setups, and none more so than your character, who is this very mysterious, almost androgynous kind of guru character. Could you set that up for us?
Well, I think, you know, it's one of the gifts that Jane Campion gives us as the filmmaker that she is. She has a lot that she wants to talk about, and she can explore so many different things through a really wide variety of characters. And this is the luxury that we get with Top of the Lake, is the involvement and the development of so many different people. Hey, you guys, could you
click?
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry. I mean, I'm seeing cell phone stuff, and it's distracting on both sides.
Yep.
Sorry. What was I saying?
About Jane Campion and
yeah. I mean, this is the luxury of doing a mini-series with her, is that she has the talent to involve so many different characters in a story, and she has the time to explore them. In the case of this mini-series, where she has 7 hours to stretch out and tell such, you know, such a giant landscape.
Let's bring in Daniel. Daniel, you're a big fan. I remember when this thing was first airing, talking about it. What's your question for Holly?
Well, I want to know, this is your first time working with Jane Campion since she directed you to that Oscar win for The Piano, 1993. I was wondering what it was that brought you back together for this miniseries, and why now as opposed to any time since then?
Well, you know, Jane, we've been friends since we made The Piano together, and Jane is a filmmaker who's been, she hasn't done movie after movie. She's taken years off. She's made a few movies since The Piano, but it's actually rare in this day and age to work with someone a second time, unless you're Joel and Ethan Coen or you're Scorsese, who they tend to work with a lot of the same people repeatedly. But so for Jane and I, there was no other opportunity until now to do Top of the Lake, and she called me and said, you know, this is a character I want you to do. Read it and tell me what you think.
You know, look, speaking of her, let's go back to The Piano, and right before that, Broadcast News, because you had a very interesting background with Show Business Awards. When you competed for Broadcast News, you won early on that season, New York Film Critics, LA Film Critics, etc. And you seemed to be this unstoppable juggernaut until you got to the Golden Globes. And then here came Cher, she popped through, and yeah, kind of.
She won the Golden Globe?
Yeah, she won the Golden Globe, and well, actually, you were in separate categories. Or no, yeah, that's right, she beat you with the Globe. But the point is, when you came shortly thereafter
I
with
love that you know this, man. I didn't even know it.
well, when you get a few years later to the piano, you swept. There was nothing you lost that year. It was so rare in showbiz history that somebody just absolutely wins every single award without exception, and all the way to Oscar night. You probably had to be thinking, uh-oh, is somebody going to derail us here? Why do you think it was that role, that movie, that you went uncontested? Nobody dared not give you the prize for the piano.
No, I mean, I think the piano was this kind of and just a once in a lifetime opportunity for us all who were engaged in making it. And I think that you know, the story is so personal to audiences. I mean, I remember that I received letters of outrage, and so did Jane, from viewers who were so repelled and outraged by the scene when my finger is cut off that 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 people were like throwing things against the wall at how dare we show something as vile and assaultive as that. I mean, the movie was very potent to people, and that was just a finger. I mean,
Yeah.
we see a lot worse things now.
And you see a lot more skin in that movie than just a finger. I mean, it's a pretty steamy sex movie, too. Fearless that way.
But I don't know. The movie was an incredible experience to do it, and I think people felt that it was kind of an amazing thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
So it asks people to feel intimately, and you kind of can't repeat that. I mean, that's just something that happened. That's something that Jane did, and Harvey Keitel and Anna Paquin and Sam Neill, and I don't know, the collaboration. You can't do it again.
Yeah, Daniel.
Well, the year you won for the piano, you're also in very rare company in that you were nominated for 2 acting Oscars that year. You were also up for supporting for The Firm. Do you remember that being a really heady experience? Having 2 films that were getting so much acclaim and attention for your performances.
Yeah, that was crazy. Did that happen? I mean, yeah, that was really wild. And I remember Emma Thompson, who's such an amazing actress. She was also, I mean, that year, both Emma and I were nominated for two different categories. I don't know what happened. What kismet was in operation for that to occur? But
Yeah. On the Emmy side, your very first award win was for Roe versus Wade, and I remember how controversial that was, and the outrage and...
No, it's too bad. It's still controversial.
It still is, yeah. What are your thoughts on all that?
Wow. I don't know. I wish it weren't so. I feel like Roe versus Wade should be an anachronism by now. I mean, that's a conversation that we should have settled, solved, New Deal.
Yeah.
What's the next topic?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just reading in the Times yesterday about, the Plan B has now been, it's going to be made, available non-prescription, over the counter to every girl, woman. And I think it's right in the way that it should be. But I find it depressing that Planned Parenthood is still struggling, and that women, still are being, challenged about governing their own bodies, and the right to choose is still very contested. That's ludicrous.
Yeah. Daniel?
Well, in addition to Roe versus Wade, and over the years, you've had a lot of success in TV and in miniseries, movies, and the series Saving Grace. A lot of high-profile actresses we've seen in recent years do a lot of television work these days. In your experience, have you found that television is an especially fruitful medium to work in?
Well, not just women. I mean, I think if you were to talk to Bryan Cranston and James Gandolfini, they would feel the same way. Michael Chiklis. Television is being very good to many people, not the least of which are women. But I think what's happening, and this is kind of old news, is that the adult material, stories that adults really want to check out and be committed to, are happening in television now. That's where writers who have a certain kind of ambition, story-wise, to take their time and explore a genre or explore a cast of characters. Seems to be where people are going, where they feel validated.
We have a question in our chat room about you working with Elizabeth Moss in Top of the Lake. She won the Critics' Choice Award for lead actress the other night, and I was there at the Beverly Hilton when she won, and it was a very, very touching scene where she gets up at the podium and says, "I've never won an award in my life." She said, "Oh my God, I just hope I don't thank the cast of Mad Men." And it was a great triumph to see Top of the Lake now, as it's advancing through award season, kick off an early victory for her, because she is somebody who has been overlooked at the Emmys and was really deserving of an award for this performance, which is so gritty and so deeply felt. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
No, well, it's a beautiful performance, and she's a really classy actress. And did something I think very, very difficult. It was a challenge to play this part, and she more than rose to it. She has an incredible amount of poise and privacy that she brings to the screen, and that's absolutely what this part required. So it's going to be. I think this is going to be the beginning of fun things for Elizabeth.
How did you define your character? Because it's really, your character's so spooky. I mean, it's delightfully spooky, so dramatic. And she's not evil. She's not. She is heroic, I guess, in her way, because she's trying to lead these women out of these emotionally troubled women out of difficulty and find a place for them. But at one point, I remember there's some dialogue where she says, paradise doesn't exist, but yet you seem to be in search of it. So your character's so rich in so many ways. When you saw the script and this character there, how do you then take it the rest of the way?
Well, I wasn't sure, when I read it, I the first thing that I asked Jane, she said, "Look, I want you to do this, read it." And I read it, and I said, why don't you get Ben Kingsley? I don't. Why would you come to me to do this? I mean, I didn't understand. And Jane was like, "Look, you can do this. Just do it." And I said, "Okay." But it was a character that I didn't really come to until later in the process. Right before we started shooting, I became much more comfortable with the idea of who she was. But definitely, she's an enigma. There's a lot of ambiguity that surrounds the choices that she's made. I don't really think she's actively trying to lead these women out of anything. In some ways, she's a pragmatist, and is, she's taking what she's given, room and board. She's able to travel the world on the backs of rich people, and she's a little bit of a she doesn't mind living that way. I don't think she sees the world in terms of moral or immoral, really. I think she just wants people to get on with it. Make your choices and act on them.
Yeah. Daniel?
Well, GJ is such a mysterious character, as you've said, and we don't learn all that much necessarily about her previous life or how she's come to be where she is. She's sort of more dealing with the turmoil of the women who've come to her. So when trying to play her, did you try and construct any kind of backstory for her for your own benefit when trying to get into her head when trying to give this performance?
Well, GJ is actually based on a real person, so I had some exposure there. But really, when it came down to it, there was no way that I could play. I couldn't imitate anyone. In some ways, what I knew about the authenticity of the person GJ was based on, I couldn't, it didn't really give me the food that I thought that it might. I kind of had to throw everything out that I'd seen and use my own intuitions, because that was the only thing that was money that I could spend. The other stuff I didn't have real access to.
You won your, let me get this right now. You won the Emmy and then won the Oscar a few months later, right? And us award nuts care a lot about these kinds of things, and we make lists of who's won an Emmy and an Oscar in the same year, and then the debate happens about calendar year versus thing. But anyway, I was at all of these ceremonies of where you were winning these awards, and I was watching you up close with this look of astonishment as you not just won, you know, everything for the piano, but that you had just been on the upswing from cheerleader murdering mom. That must have been a real high, too, to go from one award and one medium to another in just a couple months.
Well, that was just so funny, because I got off the plane from having done the piano where I said nothing. And then I got this offer to play the Positively True Adventures of the Alleged Texas Cheerleader Murdering Mom. And this woman couldn't shut up. And I was like, wow, perfect antidote. I mean, I need this character. I'm playing this. So it was like so much fun to memorize all those lines and just talk nonstop. It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that happened either, but I was so grateful and on fire about the proximity of those two characters. It just seemed very magical.
And when you did broadcast news, which, by the way, still holds the record, you may not know this again, because you have to pardon us award geeks, Holly. We keep score and we keep lists. And broadcast news still holds the record at the New York Film Critics Circle as the film to win the most in history. It won 5. That record.
Wow.
That record was tied by Far From Heaven, but it's never been exceeded. And there was something so extraordinary about that movie. And of course, this is your first big hit. This is the movie that really brings you onto the stage in a major way. And I think the reason for that was not only was the film genius in every way, but there was a rawness to your character, an ache to this woman who really, really wanted to succeed. And this mismatched love situation you got with Albert Brooks was magical, wasn't it? That's a perfect movie.
Yeah, you know, and it's so funny that you say that. I just saw it again. I went to a screening in New York where they had a Q&A afterwards, and Susan Zorinsky, who my character was based on, Susan and I have remained close over the years. So I had Susan come too. And Donald Fagen of Steely Dan, he had chosen broadcast news to screen. So it was amazing to encounter the movie again after so many years, because it's brilliant. I mean, Jim Brooks, he's a genius. It was incredible what he was able to express with those 3 characters. Yeah. It was just some kind of strange collision that once again, with the piano and then with broadcast news, I mean, those 2 movies are perfect, like you said, in a way that, you know, how did this happen in one career that I do these 2 movies?
Yeah.
But truly, broadcast news, there's nothing dated about it, you know?
No.
Except maybe the clothes.
And the language, or the clothes, yeah, but the language sparkles.
So funny. I mean, it's just a laugh.
I can still hear Albert Brooks going, I buried the lead.
and Bill Hurt is like a genius.
Yeah, yeah. We have to go now. We have Jon Cryer on the line. So thank you very much. We'll be seeing you at the Emmys. I'm sure you'll be nominated and a major contender. And a lot of us think there's a very good chance you'll win. Good luck to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up is Jon Cryer, who, as you may recall, viewers, pulled off a real shockaroo, as we like to say at Gold Derby, last year at the Emmys. He did something very bold. He decided to leave the supporting category, which he had won previously, and move up to lead. Now, this was, of course, in the absence of Charlie Sheen exiting the show. So Jon then thought, well, hey, you know, I'm the other full guy in 2.5 Men, and I really maybe shouldn't be supporting. So he took a gamble, and he moved up to lead, and he won. And it was such a victory that a lot of us didn't see it coming. I don't think Jon saw it coming. And we're waiting for Jon's video camera to zoom in, and I'll keep talking while we do that. Or actually, you can hear me, right, Jon?
I can hear you.
Okay, so while we're... Producer, is the camera in now?
I don't see why it wouldn't be, but you're right. It doesn't. I'm not getting your feed either.
Oh, okay.
And it's too bad because I look fantastic.
We're gonna fix this. Producer, what do we do?
I think we just wait.
Well, talk to us. Well, we'll try to fix this as we go. Talk to us. So this was, I remember being backstage with you, Jon. I remember being backstage at the Emmys last year when you won, and of course you stumbled in there with your jaw dragging on the floor behind you going, wow. And this was pretty bold of you to go from supporting to lead, and you did it.
Yeah, you know, in the annals of bravery, there's... this is really up there. It's like landing at D-Day and changing your category for the Emmys. You know, no,
okay.
At this point, and we talked about this a little bit last year. It was starting to get silly to keep me in the supporting category because they were hanging so much more of the show on my character, so you know, I figured, you know, well, let's just you know, agree to reality here, and then to then get. So I just figured I wouldn't even be nominated. To then be nominated, you just go, oh great, then I get to go to the party for free. This is fantastic. You know, I see no downside to this. And then to hear, you know, hear your name mentioned at the end of that, it was what was a truly surreal experience. What I think, was I forthcoming on that night that I had taken my last Vicodin right before the show?
I think you did say backstage something about that, right?
Okay, good. Okay, good. So I wasn't in denial about that at the time.
Hold on there 1 second, Jon. We're going to hang up and call you right back because we're determined to get this video. Can you be patient with us? We're going to try one more time.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. So we're using Skype here to connect with Jon Cryer and with Chris Beachum, our senior editor. Our producers are trying to cue that up again. So what we're discussing here is, you know, the very real possibility that when you win one year and you may not come back. This happened to Eric McCormick. It's happened to many people. But not only did Jon come back, but he made the bold leap attempt to move up to lead, and it really paid off. You know, this year he faces a tough competition where he's up against the usual suspects like Alec Baldwin and Jim Parsons. Jim's won a couple of times, of course, but Alec Baldwin is strong in this race this year because he is competing with the finale. We assume he'll submit to the Emmy jury for 30 Rock, and it's a long, special episode where he gets a lot of big scenes. But what Jon won for last year was an episode which, spoiler alert, turned out to be a dream sequence in which literally everything that could possibly go wrong to his character goes wrong. And it was, are you back with us, Jon?
You guys, but again, are you guys getting any video?
No, we need you to, we want you to disconnect, hang up, and we're going to call you right back on Skype.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
All right, we're going to try this one more time. If you remember this episode, a lot of crazy things happened, including Ashton starts picking up his girlfriend. But this year, the race is complicated all the more because we have Jason Bateman in the race from Arrested Development. So this year, Jon, your competition is especially tough. Can you do it again? We're counting on you, kiddo.
I don't know if I can do it again. I don't know if I'll even get nominated again. You know, again, I'm thrilled that Bateman is back. I think a lot of people were pretty excited about the new Arrested Development, and you know, and again, like I said, it felt to me like such a crazy fluke that I even got nominated last year. That you know, I don't have huge expectations for the year. But like crazier things have happened.
But John, have you noticed a pattern that every time you talk to us, you win an Emmy, and you don't seem to be very grateful for this? We thought maybe you might send the staff pizzas or gift certificates, but we're there for you again this year. We're talking again, so this could be the omen that you need another acceptance speech. I'm just saying it might happen.
Yeah. Well, like I said, one of the writers at LA Times actually called it for me last year. And that was going out on a limb quite enormously. So whatever. I'm happy to be here. Happy to get a chance to talk to you guys. I love watching TV so much. That is generally my favorite thing about going to the Emmys, is just seeing all those actors that I think are amazing. And I'm hoping that finally this is the year that John Hamm takes home Best Actor, because Bryan Cranston is amazing, but that Don Draper has yet to get his Emmy is amazing.
John, not a single person on Mad Men has won an acting award, and it's never won a directing award. I know it's won Best Series 4 times, and it has never won directing or any writing award. Chris Beachum, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so take us back to last year, Chris, because you were saying that John was a threat. I don't think any of us predicted him to win, but you knew that the episode was especially strong, right? I recall.
Yeah, it was a very funny episode. Great choice last year.
By the way, a great choice that you helped me make, by the way.
I think we narrowed it down to a couple, and then you made the final choice. But the first time you won, I thought it was also helped out by it was a great performance, but you also directed the episode you won in supporting. So I wondered if that helped you then, and not directing last year. I think we all had either Jim Parsons or somebody else. Louis C.K. A lot of people were predicting Louis to win last year.
Yeah, because he's great, and because his show has this wonderful sort of odd flavor to it that's kind of groundbreaking, and I think a lot of us want to reward FX and Louis C.K. For putting on a show that has such a that is so individual and that works so well. And let's face it, he's great. Unfortunately, but obviously he won. I think he won for writing last year.
Yes,
so he won two writing awards last year.
Okay, there you go.
So we got some gold, right? I'd love your perspective on my perspective on your situation, John, which is this, and that is you are on what is arguably the most successful comedy show in modern TV times, and the cast has come and gone. There's been a lot of gossip and turbulence around the show. You remain steady as a rock, and you're still there. You are carrying this show that has been completely redefined and reimagined around you, and you are constantly underestimated, just like Alan is on the show. I mean, he's the butt of jokes. He's the younger brother. He's got to get all this grief all the time. But then you not only succeed and carry on, you end up winning these accolades from the industry that I think has a special appreciation for the very delicate position you've been in the last few years. So, what do you think of all that?
Well, recently there was a review on, it was a news piece on the fact that the show had been picked up for another season, and that actually gave me the compliment of calling me as durable as a cockroach in a nuclear war, which I take as a sincere compliment. I have loved this character. I have, that the fan base has really stuck with the show through thick and thin, through all kinds of craziness, means so much to me. And that the writers still keep doing great stuff for my character. I keep wondering what possible thing could they throw at me next, and then they come up with even crazier stuff. Like this year, I thought that we did an episode called 4 Balls, 2 Bats, and 1 Mitt. That was one of the best 2.5 Men episodes ever shot, and it was mostly just because the writers did a fantastic job. For the actors, it was like coasting because it was so much fun to do.
So does this pass the Chris Beachum test, this episode, Chris? What, because we got to defer to you, Chris, before we ask John the question of what he may prefer, because you are emerging as Hollywood's chief authority on Emmy episode submissions. Chris Beachum, what should Jon Cryer submit this year to the Emmys? Go for it.
Well, I want to hear your thoughts too, but, I mean, obviously, but I've got two possibilities I want you to think about.
Okay.
The 904 from Pemberton, where you move in with her.
Okay.
Very funny. And then
Yes,
one of the last episodes from the season, my Bodacious Vidalia, where you date the woman with the much older husband.
Yes, and that you just liked the fact that I had to wrestle myself out of full body Spanx.
The whole makeover experience was fun to watch.
Yes. Oh, good. Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Okay. The 904 from Pemberton. Yes, that was big fun because that was me and Ryan Stiles, who is just funny. A thing that I seem to share with Ryan Stiles is that a weird thing is whenever they put the camera on us, even when we haven't said anything, the audience starts laughing. And what he and I have a theory about this, and we think that it has something to do with the audience just thinks that there's something inherently ridiculous about us simply existing. That just the fact that we breathe air is somehow ridiculous, but it's great for us as comedy performers because it does a lot of the work for us. But yes, I enjoyed both of those episodes. The funny thing about the Spanx episode was apparently the writers, literally the first day of the season, in the writers' room, they put up on the whiteboard, Alan tries to get out of Spanx, but could not work it in until the second to last episode. But it was a great physical bit that they had been looking for an excuse to do for a while, and it was, the bit took care of itself. It's like, let's put Lucy in the vat with the lady who crushes the grapes. It's like, it can't go too terribly wrong. Thank you very much, Chris. I will sit upon your input and think about it.
And do you have your own thoughts, John? Because that might inspire Chris to ponder and reconsider his, thoughts too. What were some of the other standout performances of yours?
The episode that was probably my favorite was that 4 bats, 2 balls, and 1 mitt. The episode is where Alan wants to have a threesome with Lindsay, his girlfriend, played by Courtney Thorne-Smith, but she insists on having her. She's okay with it, but she insists on having her threesome with the guy of her choice before we get my threesome with the girl of my choice. And unfortunately, the guy she picks is Walden, Ashton Kutcher, leading to a deeply profane episode. Yet another depth to which we have sunk on 2.5 Men. But I mostly it was just like I said, it was so well written that it just felt effortless, and it just it was so much fun to do that was sort of the thing that stood out for me over the course of this season. But thank you for bringing up both of those two. I will, like I said, I will ponder upon them.
And Chris, you take another look at this episode, the mid-episode that John's talking about, and give us your thoughts on that. And then we'll get back to him with your final verdict on that. Okay? I want to ask John on we've all been hearing rumblings on what happens now that Jake is phasing out of the show, and there's rumors, of course, of this teen girl that may come to the show, and I'm not sure how much of that has been resolved or officially decided. But my question is, if that were to happen, so let's just say if, do you have to change the title of this show?
Oh my goodness, has that been discussed? Yes, I don't know if we do. My understanding is that Angus's character is still a possibility for recurring, which to me means that we would not have to change it. If he chooses, and my understanding is it has not been made clear yet, if he chooses not to participate at all in the next season, then I don't know what we do, frankly. I've been a big proponent of the Cousin Oliver school of let's just bring in another kid. But I was thinking Robbie Rist. I was thinking let's actually bring in the original cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch, and just see if anybody notices.
That's a great idea.
But you know what happened? In the writer's room, they ignore me. And that's probably for the best.
Chris, what do you think of all this drama going on with the casting at 2.5 Men?
Well, we keep reading that about, I guess a long-lost daughter of Charlie's or something, maybe moving in, who would be like a teenager or maybe, 20 years old or something. Has that been officially decided? Do you know more about it?
I can tell you no, it has not been officially decided. I know that they loved having Miley Cyrus on the show. Miley's energy was just great, and it was a sort of, we all sort of stood there. She was just this force of nature, and everybody really enjoyed having her on the show. And they felt like, maybe that kind of a younger female presence would be great for us. So I think that was the root of the thing. Obviously, Miley is off doing her own wonderfulness at this moment. I think she's got like the #1 song on iTunes at this moment or something. So obviously she's kind of busy, but I think that was what planted the seed in everybody's head. My understanding is that nobody has been specifically discussed, that no particular character has been discussed, and that the feeling is it has to come organically from the show. And that was one of the things they liked about Miley's particular thing, was that it was just, she was a character that everybody loved on the show, and it just would have grown from the fact that, she'd been on it, So, I think what everybody really wants to avoid is just tacking a character in, who doesn't feel like they belong there.
Well, but wait a minute, Jon. Doesn't these decisions have to be made fairly soon? Don't you go into shooting soon?
No, the writers won't be back in the room till July.
That's then, 2 weeks away.
I'm sorry, what?
That's 2 weeks from now. Okay.
Oh, you're right. That's an eternity in sitcom time.
All righty. Okay. And then cameras. When do you have to actually be on set?
Not till August, the first week of August, or actually almost the second week of August.
Okay, that's 7-8 weeks from now. Okay.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
Okay, the last question I'm going to give to Chris, and it's going to be a question to you for Chuck Lorre. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, last year you hosted the TV Hall of Fame inductions. Chuck Lorre was inducted, and you got to be a part of that experience. What was it like at the actual ceremony that night, and what was it like? What's it like in general working for Chuck, who is almost single-handedly saving CBS?
Wow. Okay, well, first of all, I want to introduce my lovely wife, Lisa.
Hello, Lisa.
Oh, she was...
avoid being seen.
Well, but I don't know if you succeeded in avoiding being seen. My lovely wife, Lisa Joyner.
Hey.
But getting back to your question, I love those events like anything at the Paley Center, anything at the the Television Hall of Fame, anything at the Academy. Mostly because I grew up in watching television and have such admiration for the actors that I loved growing up and the writers, and so to be a part of Chuck getting into the Hall of Fame, which I think is richly deserved, was super cool. Plus, Chip from My Three Sons was there, crazy stuff. And from the host of Sábado Gigante was there. It was, you can't beat that. But in terms of Chuck single-handedly pulling up CBS by its bootstraps, Chuck is great at what he does. He cares about it deeply. He is very exacting and demanding and great with performers. And actually, I was able to see Mom, his latest show. I was at the pilot shooting, and it's fantastic. You'll be so grateful to have Allison Janney back on television. I cannot tell you. And Anna Faris is great. And the great thing about Anna Faris, I must say, is that she'd never performed in front of an audience before, and she's fantastic. She has incredibly poised, totally gets it, no difficulty whatsoever with changing her style up for a situation comedy that's a multi-camera situation. So I think people are going to be very happy with that show.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Jon. Good luck. We'll see you at the Emmys.
You don't know that yet.
I think you're certainly in the mix, and it's still up to you to pull off another jaw dropper because we're counting on you.
Oh, thanks, guys.
All right, good luck to you. Thanks so much. Next, we have Johnny Galecki, who competed in that category for Best Lead Actor a couple of years ago, and of course, one of the mainstays of 2.5 Men, which both Chris and I believe, by the way, is a serious contender to win Best Comedy Series for in its 6th season. And if you think that can't happen, we're going to talk with Johnny about cases in the past where long-running shows have finally pulled off a big win. So we're also going to talk to Johnny about his experiences with Roseanne, which had the opposite luck at the Emmy Awards. Are you there? Okay, we're dialing him up right now. Chris, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Let's talk about that. Big Bang Theory, you really think it can win Best Comedy Series at the Emmys. Explain.
Well, even before it won Monday night with the Critics' Choice, it really started dawning on me 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think there's a real Modern Family fatigue going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they don't like the show, but 3 wins in a row for a comedy series is an awful lot. There's only a handful of shows ever to win 4. So I think the voters are going to be searching around trying to figure out what else do we like? What's a viable alternative here? And I'm really wondering if Big Bang Theory might just win this whole comedy series award this year.
Right. Johnny, you're with us now. Did you hear what Chris just said? He said you guys might win comedy series this year. You think this is the one of the? You think this is the strongest season yet, don't you, for the show?
I do personally. Yeah, it's my favorite. I mean, to be able to go these places with these characters now, which I think, is something you really need to earn in comedy, especially in multi-camera comedy. And we've been fortunate enough to have an audience that follows us and have these characters and their histories established. And so there's really no need for a lot of exposition. You can just get right in there and get your hands dirty and tell stories about these characters and their relationships between one another.
And we get to know Leonard more and more, of course, as the years go by. How would you define the journey he's been on as a character as it's been developed by you and the writers? Because he's not exactly the same person he was 6 years ago, is he?
No, I hope not. We always talked about, or I should say Chuck Lorre always told us, that these characters would evolve at a snail's pace. It's a lot of 2 steps forward, 9 steps back. But then there are things that happen that you can't ignore. For example, when Penny broke Leonard's heart, I mean that changes a person permanently. And I thought it would be really irresponsible to not show some sort of growth there. I think he's much happier than he was the first few seasons. And again, a lot of that is through the relationship with Penny. I mean, he feels safer. I think they're in a really good place, and that was something that I hoped I would be able to kind of guide the character towards as the years went on. If we were this fortunate for him to find some happiness, some gratefulness in these wonderful friends that he's surrounded by.
Chris?
When you were nominated for an Emmy a couple of years ago, I did a blog item because it was so rare. It's so rare to have 2 comedy lead males that are, equal in stature on the show. I could only find a couple of other examples in the whole Emmy history, comedy at least. Friends had Matt LeBlanc and Matthew Perry up the same year. But that was really all 6 people on that show were leads. But it goes back to The Odd Couple, really. Tony Randall and Jack Klugman both won. They were nominated against each other several times. Yeah. Talk about just the relationship between you and Jim as actors, but also between Sheldon and Leonard as really coexisting on this show.
We don't speak.
I want to know, Johnny, can I interrupt here? Why doesn't Leonard, or when will Leonard, haul off and slap Sheldon. I mean, Sheldon is so mean to you. Why do you put up with it?
You would be surprised, or you might not be surprised, how often I'm asked that question. You know, I think they really, truly need each other on some levels. You know, they share the same brain in many ways. They have very different hearts, but I think they share the same brain in a lot of ways. And in some ways, not to get too like Sam Shepard about it, but I think they're two sides of the same man. You know, they've come close. I love the episode that we did this season about when Leonard talked about moving out and moving in with Penny, and it was due to Sheldon ruining the Harry Potter books for him. I mean, and of course, all of that discomfort or angst or frustration and exasperation that's been boiling under their dynamic for many, many years, of course it's going to come down to something as silly as ruining the end of a Harry Potter book.
Right, of course,
you know?
of course.
But it's all that's been underneath for so long, and it's a lot of fun to play because it gives it there's a sense of unpredictability. They could implode or split up or slap one another at any second. Actually, Leonard did slap Sheldon this season. We were doing a scene. You didn't see it. It was off camera. Leonard was laying in bed, and Sheldon kept talking to him through the wall. And it came up, it was Chuck's idea during the live taping with the studio audience there. He said, Johnny, when you go out and just leave the room, make a slap sound, and Jim will holler. I said, really? Steve Malero and I said, Leonard's going to slap Sheldon?
All right, let's hear it for Leonard. Yeah.
And the audience went crazy. But it was a risky thing. I didn't think it was going to work because I see how protective the audiences are of these characters. But boy, it was like the Beatles walked in. They just went crazy when they heard that slap.
Also, it's very out of character for your character in a way, too, because drawing a parallel to Penny and Leonard, for example, part of what makes Leonard so endearing in that relationship is she's kicking your butt all the time, and she's putting you down and then loves you the next minute. And I think Leonard has this goodness about him that he just puts up with the abuse heaped on him by the world. And so when if he actually fights back, you don't expect it. Do you agree with that?
That's a wonderful point that I hadn't considered. I mean, I do. I mean, I don't know if he takes Penny's, I think, abuse, as you put it, as such. I think they tease each other a lot now because it's a safer place for them, and it's not driven by so much insecurity as it was in the first few years. And that's a lot of fun because we do give our loved ones a hard time. In jest and in frank, blunt honesty.
Yeah, that's true. Chris?
Well, you mentioned that Harry Potter episode. Are you thinking about maybe that one for Emmy submission if you get nominated again, or is there something else in mind?
I haven't considered that at all, to be honest with you. I mean, look, it's always incredible to be recognized for your work, and I understand politically what it means to the longevity of a show when there are nominations or accolades or any of the attention that we've been given the last few years, which has been incredible. At the same time, I don't know if Emmy award campaigning is not something I think you want to be too shrewd about.
But Johnny, you really need to be shrewd about being nominated against a co-star. Let me give you an example. In the heyday of The Sopranos, when Edie Falco kept winning, sometimes it was because, quite frankly, Lorraine Bracco, her co-star, would be nominated against her, and I think without thinking it through, Bracco would end up submitting a really good Edie Falco episode. So that all of a sudden, you have to remember there are about 70 jurors who are going to decide who wins and loses. So if you're nominated against Jim, you have to be careful not to. You have to submit really good work for yourself, but you have to make sure you don't submit really great work for the others. Desperate Housewives is another example of this, where we saw Marcia Cross. What was that example? Felicity Huffman ended up winning because Marcia Cross submitted a really good Felicity Huffman episode and didn't quite calculate that. So do you even think about that when you're nominated against Jim?
No, of course not. And that, I mean, maybe that's naive or hyper sentimental or something like that. But, well, first of all, to try to submit an episode where Jim's work might be lesser than another episode is impossible. His work is always incredible in every single episode. But no, I think that there's, there could be a danger in starting to misunderstand what's really important in the work if I pay too much attention to such things. At the same time, I have to say that attending these ceremonies has gifted me with a sense of community in this industry that I never felt the first 25 years that I've been doing this. It's an incredibly supportive group, and it's wonderful to meet people you admire and to walk up and tell them specifically how their work has affected you personally and bettered you professionally. So I don't mean in any way to shun these events whatsoever. They're amazing, and I'm just grateful to be there.
Chris, we know how crazy these Emmys are. When Roseanne was on the air, sometimes the TV Academy would acknowledge the acting branch, sometimes some of the others. But that show, let's remind our viewers here, may have been a Golden Globe winner, may have won a Peabody, and was even #1 in the Nielsen's for 2 or 3 years of its 9 years on the air. It never won, it was never even nominated for Best Comedy Series, right, Chris?
Yeah, that's right.
How
Roseanne
crazy
won
is
herself
that?
as actress, and Laurie Metcalf won a few times. But what
John won.
John was nominated a bunch of times, but he didn't know how to submit episodes. Unfortunately, he never did a good job on that. That's why you need to pay attention. Go to John and say, what did you do wrong?
Johnny, this is how bad John Goodman's episodes were. Because we watch these episodes every year. If I could just give you this little inside dish, very often John Goodman's performance on Roseanne's Emmy submission was better than the one he submitted in his own category. I imagine that John Goodman had a big vat of episodes. He just kind of reached in there when they said, pick one, and he just said, here, take this one. He put no thought into it at all, but that's my rant. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just wondering, the stuff we were talking about with Roseanne and Best Comedy Series, why do you think that happened? Why do you think, I can't remember an example of a show that was both critically acclaimed and high in the ratings that wasn't up for the series award.
My theory is that they're snobs at the Academy, that it just was a little too... The glory of Roseanne is it celebrated lower middle class family, which, as Johnny was just alluding to, can be tough on each other and crass sometimes, and a brilliant comedy knows what to do with that. And I think these snobs at the Academy, they like their Frasers and their Mad Men and their West Wing, and I think Roseanne scared them. What do you think of that theory, Johnny?
You might be right. I mean, I think that kind of leads outside of the Academy too. I think having been on that show for 5 years, there were a lot of people, obviously people embraced that show because they related to it. They related to those family dynamics. Now, whether or not they wanted to admit that is a very different story. So there might be something to your theory. I'm not sure, but it is pretty mind-boggling that the show struck such a chord and had 30-some million viewers for every week for years, and was not nominated.
When you turn on your TV set, Johnny, Big Bang Theory now is in syndication on 700 channels, and Roseanne's on all the others. Is it possible? I mean, can you just avoid yourself when you turn on your set?
I do my best. I do my very best, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I make a point to not watch the show, watch Big Bang every single week, because I think there's a danger there where you can start to micromanage your performance, and then it can become very esoteric. But I check in once in a while. Otherwise, I watch a lot of 60 Minutes and Dateline, and hopefully I'll not end up on Dateline. But that's pretty much, and Mad Men and Justified and shows of that nature. But it's also, it comes with what I do. You don't want to necessarily after working and rehearsing a sitcom for 12 hours, come home and watch sitcoms. That's still going to be work. I'm still going to, even if I'm not involved in it, I'm still going to be judging, what I think may have been a better choice, or wow, that's a choice I never would have thought of. And maybe I'll steal that idea and apply it next week on our show, or things like that. You just can't shut it off.
All right, Chris.
Well, speaking of legendary shows, we talked about Roseanne, but you got to work with Bob Newhart on an episode this season, and you seemed really excited the other night to see him get that Icon Award at the Critics' Choice. What was it like working with him on that episode? Did he teach the cast any comedy lessons while he was there?
No, I gave him some notes on his timing.
Good answer.
You know what he taught me? I've been doing this 30 years now, and I've loved every single day of it, truly, profoundly. And with that, there's a fear that the passion I have for it will just one day, all of a sudden, dissipate for whatever reason. And that scares me because, one, I love it, and two, I can't do anything else. So there's no fallback plan. And so to work with someone like Mr. Newhart, who's been doing this 53 years, 54 years, who shows up with the same passion and generosity and curiosity as if it was the first day on his first gig, was really inspiring and galvanizing and comforting to think, wow, okay, with us lifers, it's always there. That fire is always in you, no matter how long you do it.
You did a superb job, by the way, at the Critics' Choice the other night. Johnny, I have to commend you. I was in the audience, and a lot of things were going wrong on that stage. A lot of missed cues and the rest of it. You were unflappable. You were up there a couple times, and what was that like to be, in those awkward moments when an award show is going a little crazy, and just kind of weathering through it?
Well, boy, it's funny you say that. I didn't even feel that anything may have been awry or unorganized or anything like that. It was thrilling. It was wonderful to go up there, and except for Simon, that wasn't discussed. That it was probably very clear in how I could just they called Simon's name, and I know that he's in Paris shooting his movie right now. And I looked at Chuck, and Chuck said, "You go," and I grabbed Kunal, but it was a real thrill and I meant what I said, that he is. I've had the fortune of working with some comedy legends, be it Roseanne, Chevy Chase, throughout my career, and Simon Helberg is just one of the way that his mind works comedically. He's got to be one of the top 3 funniest people I've ever met and worked with. So that was really, really exciting. It was, I don't know, it was a good time. I'm glad I seemed unflappable.
Well, that's what I mean, though. There was no plan to what to do in that occasion.
As a show.
Yeah, and you rescued the moment. There had been no plan in case he won, apparently, and so you just rose to the occasion and saved the moment. There were also, all night long, there were people coming in on the wrong side of the stage, and where was the host? It was kind of a little fun to watch, actually, because it was on edge. Anyway, you won Best Comedy Series that night. It was a big surprise of the night. We think that you're really, really in the running this year. So good luck to you, and good luck to you in the acting categories. It's a show that's certainly worthy and long overdue. So we're going to bid goodbye now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for your support.
Thanks, and to our viewers, this is the second to last episode of Derby Talk this season. We will be back with our last show next week with quite a lineup. We've talked about Justified. Johnny's mentioned it's one of his favorite shows, and we talked about Friends. Well, guess what? We have next week Timothy Oliphant joining us. We have Matthew Perry joining us. And this just in, an email I just got here 2 seconds ago. Aaron Paul will be here from Breaking Bad. We hope you will be too. Thanks for watching.